So I want to make a video. I've been trying to make a video for like a little while. So I want to make a video about this. So I've been listening to Alexander Shogun and Shogun, a bunch of different chemists all day long. Uh, some things about synthesis and some things about like just a bunch of different science things and things like that. Kind of made me realize I'm kind of like uh, a modern day alchemist, but you can't really say scientist because a scientist technically is a thing. Like a therapist is a thing. Um, but what's the difference between a life coach and a therapist, or what's the difference between someone who generally gives good advice that helps people and a therapist? It's just really just a license and a thing that allows you to say you are a therapist or you are this thing. Now, even though I'm not that thing, I'm not a scientist. I wouldn't really want to be anyways because scientists are so, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Is scientists are so, I guess, structured, and it's kind of because they have to be. But I've realized that I'm not as structured as the scientist. That's why I'm not a scientist, and like that's why like a lot of times I call myself a modern day shaman because it's more like I practice shamanism, and shamanism is more the shaman goes on plantetas. And now, even a shaman has a little more structure. And the funny thing about scientists is you can kind of see that the shaman and the scientist are kind of the same, but the shaman is just a more primitive but more expanded version. The shaman does a lot more things. The shaman is the scientist, the priest. He's also like the philosopher, it's just the shaman does a lot. The healer, uh, the therapist, the astronomer, that's the shaman. And now our society today has the shaman split up into multiple things, from a scientist to a therapist to a this to a that. But really, it used to be kind of one human that would chaotically do this and would learn it all and kind of learn a little bit of everything. So then they can help is people, I guess, with a more rounded version of knowledge. And so that's kind of what I do with my thing is in the beginning of, I guess you could say, my psychedelic journey, it was me exploring with DMT. But before that, I was smoking weed since I was like, I tried cannabis when I was 11. I didn't smoke it again until I was 15. And then, well, I didn't smoke it again until I was 14. And then I smoked it again when I was 15. And I smoked every day from there on out. But I wasn't really smoking it to explore or smoking it to really whatever. I was just kind of smoking to get high in a sense, and it really helped me make music. So I had a studio back then, so I was making music. But what I'm really into now, though, what I've realized is just exploring, and I love molecules that have history to them, like a plant that has a history to it, like where shamans used it, or some tribe from Africa, or a tribe from South America, or a tribe from wherever the fuck used it. Um, I love Motherwork because it was used kind of like as the epidural, is used today, but it was also used for an after effect thing to help mothers with postpartum depression and um, it's just to help mothers as well, because parenting can be stressful. Now, I use Motherwort for a completely different reason, but this is what I've kind of experimented with. My type of experiments are not as structured, but I like to experiment. So there was a time where I did Motherwort every single day for 6 months. And sometimes I did it 2 times a day, sometimes I did it once a day, but I was not doing the typical motherwort that people are. If you type motherwort and you type someone who's using motherwort, they were just talking about using a tincture or something. I was using what I would call a shamanic dose. So a shamanic dose is like when you take a high enough dose to the point where basically it kind of almost forces you to fall asleep. But I've learned that if you can fight that sleep off, you can have a somewhat psychoactive effect. Um, that was just from my experiments with experimenting with it for 6 months. I had that theory from experimenting with it like a year prior to that, that it possibly will have a different effect at a higher dose. But that theory came to me from kratom, right? When I first started using kratom in 2016, I was doing the research and I found out that kratom at low doses is a stimulant. At high doses, it's more like an opiate, and it's more sedating and relaxing. And so it made me realize that molecules at different doses cause different effects. Um, and that just like with DMT, when I was exploring with DMT, I realized that if I smoke 15 milligrams of DMT, it's not that you see some visuals, you might see a little something, but it ain't really nothing. Um, but if you hit that threshold dose, what people call the breakthrough, all it is you took anywhere from 50 to 80 milligrams of DMT, depending on your body weight and depending on how your brain chemistry works. But regardless, that breakthrough is the breakthrough, and it's a completely different experience than a low dose DMT experience. You would think they are two completely different drugs. Um, a lot of times with the breakthrough, you think you died. You know, there's no way that's a drug that can do that. That's no way that's possible. Like, but from my DMT travels, I guess, I kind of realized that things are different at different doses. So it made me think, are other drugs like that? So even as simple as Motherwork. They say Motherwork's good, for calming. It just kind of calms you down. It has like a motherly vibe to it. So I don't know, it kind of feels like a mother's hug in a sense at low doses. At high doses, it feels like you just got knocked the fuck out by like, I don't know. And there is slight closed eye visuals, slightly, but you have to learn how to do it, I guess, or learn how to pay attention. Terrence McKenna said something once that was fucking dope, and he was like, people don't know how to look at the back of their eyelids. And it's so real that people don't know how to look at the back of their own eyelids. They don't know how to look at darkness. And like look, like after they do a psychedelic and if they sit there and do mushrooms or something and close their eyes, um, they might think it's nothing because they don't know how to pay attention to it. And all of this is kind of like a science, right? But the problem is that it's all so chaotically unorganized that science would never. Like, I was joking with my girl earlier about how, like, they wouldn't allow me to be a scientist in this world. Um, because I wouldn't be the typical scientist. I'd be more like Alexander Shulgin. I'd be more I'm the type of guy that's like, I'm doing this for a completely different reason. The people that are going to school to be chemists in this world today are most likely not doing it for the same reasons. And trust me, there are some that are, though. There are some people that are, going into chemistry because, shit, they want to be the next Alexander Shulgin. And fuck yeah to them. But, like, me, I just want to be me. And, like, that's why I kind of vibe with the shamanism, with the plants, with the plant extracts, and it's more alchemy than chemistry, because like for me, I'm I love to extract things. Extract different extracts from different plants, whether it's like the oils out of the plants, or whether it's just using water to extract an extract out of a plant. Um, but I'm also learning other things, right? More complex things, because knowledge is really good to know. But like, even making motherwort extract, it's I made a TikTok, and it's like it's my first video, and it's probably gonna be the most viewed video I'll ever have on TikTok. But it made me realize that shit, this knowledge is valuable. People want to know these things. People want to know knowledge. They want to know how to do things. But knowledge has kind of been lost in our society because we think that you have to be a scientist to know these things. We think you have to be a doctor to know doctor things, or you have to know, uh, you have to go to school to learn how to build computers, or you have to whatever the fuck, and all that's bullshit. We live in the 21st century where no one realizes we live in the 21st century, but our kids will, and our grandkids will. We're so stuck in the fact of where we used to be that we don't see where we're going and where we're headed towards, because it is like a, I don't know, a revamp or a revival of chemistry. There is a, when wax first, hit the scene, right? So many people tried making their own wax in their own home. So, like, people would get the butane, they'd get the tubes, and they'd blast the butane through the weed, and they'd get their wax. And then they'd try to, do their thing and try to learn how to purge it out and whatever. But a lot of people blew their fucking kitchens up, and a lot of people just didn't really know what they were doing because they didn't understand that butane was a highly flammable molecule, right? It's a highly flammable substance. So, like, chemistry requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of care and a lot of knowing what the fuck you're doing, even as simple as making your own wax, because making your own wax isn't necessarily that safe if you don't know what you're doing. Because the funny thing about my life, and this is my life, I don't want anyone to live the life I live. I just want people to kind of see this is just what the fuck I've been doing with my life, and this is what I've done with my life. And kind of what I've done is I've been able to, I guess, just try trial and error, right? The things I want to try and error too. So, like, in 2016, I taught myself how to make wax. I was learning just like the other people, so I was watching YouTube videos and I was doing all this other shit, but I learned how to make wax, and it took me about a month to perfect how to make pure, nice, clear shatter. But by time that month was over, I done smoked so much dirty fucking not clean butane filled fucked up wax in that whole fucking month period, that I done fucked my lungs up, and I basically gave myself a seizure from, like, doing all that shit, right? And you look up the side effects of butane. Butane can cause seizures and convulsions or whatever the fuck, but, like, um whether it was from exposure to the butane based on making it, or it was from the fumes and all that shit, whatever, not enough ventilation or whatever the fuck it was, or me doing it so much getting butane on my hands or whatever the fuck, or it was leaving butane in the wax itself, because you know sometimes as I was just practicing with it, sometimes I would stir up the wax just to try to get the butane out quicker because I just wanted to do a dab and I was just trying to rush it. And I learned that you can't stir it if you want shadow that creates butter. But then, back then, I knew nothing about purging. I knew nothing about putting it in a vacuum, thing and all this other shit. So, like, there was a slow process of me learning how to do this based on just trial and error and trial and error. And I don't recommend people do it this way. But this is just my life, right? Because nowadays you can fucking just buy machines, and that's why after the whole butane scene hit, you stop seeing people doing that, and then people invented the whole rosin thing. And it's not that rosin wasn't already invented; it's that it wasn't popular. Nobody knew what it was because everyone was making butane wax. So because people were blowing themselves up, I'm pretty sure someone in the cannabis industry was looking like, yo, we gotta stop having these people blow this shit up, because then you might make cannabis really illegal if you keep trying to, do it this way. So, like, then rosin hit the scene. And then when shit really hit the scene is when everyone's local Walmarts started selling rosin presses. Like, even in, like, technically illegal states, right? So, like, so then rosin is just a cleaner way of getting your wax without solvents, and it's just a better way for people who do not know nothing about chemistry. If you knew nothing about chemistry and know nothing about how to remove the solvents from your product, then yeah, definitely use rosin, rosin presses and shit. But that does not make it any better. I hate when people say because they didn't use chemicals that it's better, and then when people say, oh my God, did you know that they use drain cleaner and like gasoline and all this other shit to make that drug? And I'm sitting there thinking, did you know that they did the same thing to make the caffeine that's in the Pepsi? Um, or the caffeine that's in any soda whatsoever. Any soda or tea, or I mean, I guess artificial teas that might have additive things, but a lot of caffeine is synthetically made. A lot of molecules are synthetically made because it makes more sense to make things synthetically uh, for our environment. If you are taking so much uh, plant-based caffeine, it's really hard to keep extracting enough of it. Um, but so a lot of different energy drinks, different things like that, their caffeine isn't necessarily from natural products, but some might be. But I guess what I'm saying is, just because you use chemicals in a thing to make the drug does not make it bad. Um, if you did it correctly, you have the right. You don't necessarily need the right quote unquote machinery. You need to have the right knowledge to remove it, to clean it, to wash it, to do this, to do that, to get the cleanest product at the end result. Um, Now, I guess what I've realized is, so I was trying Boulding, which Boulding is an aporphine alkaloid in the Boldo leaf. And I was thinking while I was taking a piss, I was sitting there thinking about how I wonder so I'm gonna get pure Boulding, like pure white crystalline Boulding, and I'm gonna try that, and then I'm gonna retry the Boldo leaf. And I'm gonna make Boldo leaf extract. I brewed a really strong tea that basically would have. It was an extract because there was like an ounce that I split between like 2.5 doses. So like it was a really strong tea. But my thought was, I wonder if the effects will be the same. I wonder if I take Boldo and I'm like, it's gonna give me the same effect that if I took the Boldo leaf extract. Um, and then my question was the same thing uh, with a lot of, I guess, molecules like this, right? A lot of things like that. And a lot of times the answer is no, because the entourage effect is when plants have anywhere between like 30 to like thousands of different molecules in one plant. So like it can the entourage effect is the fact that all the different molecules together cause an effect, and together they give you the feeling or whatever, the high, the medicinal benefits, whatever the fuck you're getting out of the substance. But to me, after like, and this is kind of why I say, like, I'm not a scientist, but I definitely look at this like a scientist because I'm trying to figure something out. And I'm trying to figure this shit out for me in a sense, but it also is going to help others because, like, the things I've done, I can definitely help other people. Some of the mistakes I've done, I can definitely help other people and say, you shouldn't do that. But a lot of times, what I'm starting to figure out is plants feel more whole. They feel more complete and they feel more alive. And I don't know how to explain that. That's why I love being me, because if I was a scientist, I couldn't say that plants are alive. I couldn't say that when I take plant drugs at a high enough dose, I can, in a sense, kind of communicate with the plant. And it's not like it's going to communicate with me the way I'm communicating with you, but some plants can. And that's the thing that a lot of scientists don't necessarily know, because scientists aren't really real scientists anymore. The real scientists, and this is kind of problem is when I make a video, it takes me so long to get to the fucking point, because like there's so many points and it takes too goddamn long to really get information out, because information is so big, and it's like a giant file that you're trying to cram into a small little memory card, and like it's just too much. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like real scientists, right, are the ones that look crazy as fuck. Sometimes the real scientists don't have their fucking credentials. Sometimes the real scientists are like, fuck it, why the fuck would I need a credential? Now, because go back far enough in history, look at Nikola Tesla. Look at some people, if you go back far enough in history, like one of Hobson the rapper, one of the bars he said, like the man that invented college, did he go to college? Like, and the man that invented college obviously did not go to college. He invented college. But the thing is that the real scientists, the people that discovered things, the people that created things, the real inventors, the inventors didn't go to school to be inventors. They were born that way. This is who they are. I think sometimes scientists, we have a lot of scientists that are not scientists. They just have a piece of paper that says they're a scientist. But really, they're enthusiasts. They're people that are really interested in the topic, but they're not that thing. It's like people who are interested in. There's a lot of people interested in psychedelics. Psychedelics have made a comeback in the world today, but that don't mean you're a shaman because you're tripping balls, and whatever the fuck. There's depth to this thing. And that's why, like, with the shamans, they go on plant dietas, and a plant dieta is when you take a plant for 6 months, or maybe take a plant for a year every single day, and basically gain a relationship and a connection with the plant. And that's what I mean. Why I look at it, I prefer to look at it that way, because that's what I believe plants are. You can gain a relationship with plants if you fight yourself to take it enough and to learn it. If you weren't around, think about the closest relationships you have today in your human life. It's people you've talked with the most, spent more time with, connected with, vibed with. You It's the connection thing. And now you can gain a connection in 6 months, you can gain a connection in a year, but that's what the shamans looked at with the plants. As it's like you're just like a relationship, you're building a relationship with it, but it's not always easy. Some plants will fucking kick your ass. Some drugs will fucking kick your ass. And when it came to the shamans, a lot of times they were using drugs and plants, but we look at this shit as drugs, but they were using plants that necessarily weren't fun. It was fun to them though, right? Because it's their life. It's what they were meant to do. It's the same reason why taking Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds to me is fucking amazing. It's fun. I love it. But other people will not look at it as fun because the nausea and how it just makes you feel like kind of sick for the first hour and a half. And like, yeah, so I love that about it though, because that's part of its personality. We don't understand that plants have personalities. They have certain things and certain traits. And the Hawaiian Bay Woodrose seeds doesn't want to be looked at like a drug. So it made sure that if you want to take it, you're going to feel sick as fuck. Sit the fuck down. Because it's not supposed to be, it's not a party drug. But there are some substances that are. But what I've came to realize is that there is a difference between plant drugs and non-plant drugs, plant molecules and non-plant molecules. Um, the problem is that a lot of people say plant drugs are better. Plants are better. Plants are better than drugs. Plants over drugs. And it's never a plants over thing. It's it's that plants are alive and drugs are not. drugs feel like an AI. So like LSD, for example. When it comes to LSD feels like the AI psychedelic. It feels like the cyborg psychedelic. It's like half human, half cyborg, half plant, half man made, half science, half nature. It's both, and I can feel that when I take it after I compare it to something like Hawaiian baby woodrow seeds, which is its mother chemical. LSA is the mother of LSD, but LSA has so much more of a spiritual vibe to it than LSD. And what I mean by spiritual is it allows access into the spirit world. You can generally travel with the plant psychedelics. Psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, ayahuasca, mescaline, LSA. You're able to travel what people would call dimensions, realities. Shamans called it the spirit world. You know, what happens when we die, the next realm, the next plane of existence, but whatever you want to call it, that's what plant psychedelics do. But non plant psychedelics, like LSD, the two C's, 2CE, 2CB, you know, some of those other, I guess, semi-synthetic tryptamines, like 4-ACO DMT. There's a few others, but like they all have a slight God feeling, slight science feeling, slight uh, something, just something. But with all this research that I've kind of done, and I do physical research before I do, no, I do mental research before I do physical research. Physical research is when I take the substance, take the plant, and explore with it. For anywhere from maybe I'll take it for a week, maybe I'll take it for 6 months, maybe I'll take it on and off for 6 months, but like just to get to know it, to see what it really does before I can really talk about it. That's why I can't really talk about the Boldo leaf or Boldine, because I haven't taken it enough. And I've only taken it 2 times, but it has a very specific feeling both times. So like I kind of, get it. But I want to explore with it more to really get it. Um, but other things I've already explored with. And there's so many things I've explored with, like chaga mushroom. I explored with that for like 6 months, so I really got to know that. And so I decided to make a book about this today, and I decided that I'm gonna make a book about. Basically, I'm gonna try to structure it about all the different plants I've done, and it kind of got inspired by Alexander Shogun, to be honest, because how he did T-call and P-call, it reminded me that like I've done a lot of exploration with plant substances and plant extracts and really getting to know these things. And first I was just exploring with DMT, but then I started realizing that there are plants out there, and that it's not always about the psychedelic. It's not always about the hardest hitting substance. Sometimes you can take a subtle plant that gives a very subtle effect, kind of like blue vervain, but it's a very there's a buildup of a spiritualness to it. There's a weird spiritual effect to blue vervain. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't take it for a prolonged period. If I only took blue vervain once or twice, I would have said, yeah, it's kind of calming, relieves anxiety. My mind was so clear. Like, if you're an overthinker, like, blue vervain is fucking amazing for that. But, like, but for a week, 2 weeks straight, though, high doses, you get some weird spiritual effects. I was down by the river one time, and I was on a high dose of blue vervain for a while, and I was just sitting there about to make a video, and it was kind of silent, and I ended up like hearing some Native American fucking weird shit flute, and like I don't know, it freaked me the fuck out. I fucking left, but I don't know. I started doing research, and like Blue Vervain does have some spiritual history to it, and people have talked about the spiritual effects, but nobody can get it to work. Like people have talked about how there's something about it that the Native Americans like revered the plant, and they really looked at the plant spiritually, but people can't really understand why, because low doses really don't do much. But I just think, from what I've learned, I guess I would have never learned any of this if I didn't just live this life. I did the same thing with actual drugs in the summer of 2015, but that was like kind of shitty. Like, those drugs are so blah, like so lifeless. Like, how I'm talking about how the semi-synthetic, the half natural and the half non-natural molecules are like great. Like, they still feel half natural, but they still feel half not. But that half not isn't necessarily bad. It's just their thing. But the pharmaceuticals, like, a lot of those things feel so dirty, and they feel so uh your consciousness feels so not helped. I don't know how to explain it. You feel really foggy on those type of things. Um, Now, the only fog I ever want to experience is from cannabis. Cannabis does create like a haze type effect. There's a haze effect to it. But it's not a mental fog enough where it affects my speaking because I'm talking to you now. But, and I'm on Delta 8, I'm on Delta 9, I've been, doing my thing. Phone's about to die. But I don't know. I just realized that I've been doing this shit for 6 years now, and I think it's about time for me to, like, I've been trying to write. My problem is I fucking hate writing. So, like, I'm trying to write 3 books. I have 3 book ideas. One of them's half done. The other one's like a chapter and a half in, and this one, like, it's all done in my head, right? All my experiences that I've gone through with all these different plants, they're all in my head. A lot of them I have trip reports for, or a lot of them, like I said, they're just all in my head. They're all there. The problem would be getting them out on the paper because I hate fucking writing because it takes too goddamn long. And I love making a video because if I took all the words that I said in this video and put it in a piece of paper and put it on paper, it'd be a lot, right? It'd be pretty much a lot. So, like, shit, 4 videos could be a book, and that's what irritates me with um writing, is I wish I was better at writing. I'm so good at speaking, but I've always had trouble growing up as a kid with writing. So, like, writing books is just gonna take me. It just takes me a while. So, but I'll get there. But so I'm gonna get this book out, but I'll definitely probably have more videos about this because I realized I'm 33 minutes in, but I can go another 33 minutes about how, like, I've learned about all the different aporphine alkaloids and how, and I've taken like 3 or 4 different aporphine alkaloids. So I've been able to see their different effects. And I've been able to see that it's very similar to the idea of the different psychedelics, or the different tryptamines, or the different lysergamites, or the different opioids. Um, Different, you can have Percocet, Vicodin, which, oxycodone, hydrocodone. You can have morphine. You can have codeine. You can have all these things and take them individually on their own, and they're going to have slightly different effects. And even though they have the same base structure, the different placements of the other shit, causes different effects. Um, that's what I've realized with the aporphine alkaloids. I've been able to take a bunch of different plants that contain aporphine alkaloids, and my problem is, by this summer, my goal is to, have another summer of exploration, because last summer I got to explore with LSD and really, really get to know LSD. I got to do the same thing with MDMA, and really get to know MDMA. So, like, I've kind of taken summer of 2020 to explore with LSD, and the spring of 2020 to explore with Hawaiian baby woodrose seeds and LSA. And I've realized that this has been my life for years now. That every year I decide there's certain things I want to explore with. And like some people, they have New Year's resolutions. And I've realized that I'm so me, and that's the goal. I feel like that's the goal of life. The goal of life is to become you, right? So like I'm so me that the only resolution I have is like, I just want to try new things. So like, I really wanted to try Delta 8 THC. So I'm like, fuck it. I finally got some Delta 8 THC, and now I can feel there is a difference between Delta 9 and Delta 8. And based on just smoking wax of delta, of weed, right? So delta 9 shatter and or delta 9 wax and delta 8 wax, there is a difference. And it's just and there's some differences that there's something that I don't want to mention yet because it could just be me, right? But like there's just some effects that the delta 8 might have that delta 9 might not. Some things that we're overlooking because I was researching what the fuck was it called? THCO acetate, and I really want to get my hands on that because THCO acetate is this more psychedelic, more spiritual THC. Out of all the cannabinoids that I've researched that are natural or natural based, THCO acetate is very similar. It's in a similar category that LSD is in. It's half natural, half not, but it's made from THC. You take THC and you basically, like I think you add an acetyl group to it. I think it's called, and then you have O acetate, THC, but the reports on it is that it's more psychedelic. It could possibly cause more psychedelic visuals. It's more spiritual, more closed eye visuals, more intense feeling. And so that's what I love. This is my life. I fucking love this shit. I guess I'm gonna end the video. I'm gonna try to end this video with like the fact that I fucking love my life. And I think the key to loving your life is doing what you love as much of the day as possible. So, like, I'm just a simple man. A lot of people aren't simple enough. They're so complex that they'll never be happy because they're so complex that they're like, I need this, and that to be happy. And all I need is to do a little research. All I need is a plant that I've never tried before that I'm interested in, and I'm going to try it and I'm going to explore with it. And then I love to explore. And some people might be confused and look at it like, yo, bro, you seem like you're addicted to drugs, man. And like, no, I've been addicted to substances. I've tried many plants that, I've gotten addicted to. Kratom was the main plant that I've gotten addicted to, that I've tried. But there are some plants that I've tried over the years that, and literally the kind of the reason why I explored with them was to see if they were addicting or not, because there wasn't enough information. There was not enough information on Mucuna pruriens to tell me whether it's addictive or not. It was just based on common sense. Yeah, after I researched what molecules were in it, that I was like, okay, it's probably addictive. And because it contains a molecule related to nicotine, it's addictive in a similar way. And when I stopped using it, it caused the sweats, caused a little bit of anxiety. But it only lasted like a day or two, and then I was fine. But opioid addictions last like anywhere from like a week to a month. Like shit. But depending on which opioid you're addicted to. But this is just all this shit. Like I said, I could talk forever on this because everything I've learned from every different molecule I've tried. I wrote down a fucking list of plants I've tried, and I'm at 37 different plants I've tried. and I didn't add the drugs I've tried, but I'm gonna add that as well. So I'm in probably like about 50 different plants and substances that I've tried over the past 6 years. Um, so yeah, and somebody got a comment today that said, you do a lot. You do these things a lot, and not really. I don't do these things a lot, but I do these things. Um, I do take, I do smoke weed a lot. I do, and not really. That's the funny thing. I don't really smoke that much weed. I do take kratom, but I don't really take that much kratom. There are people that take fucking 8 grams of kratom every dose, or 10, 15 grams of kratom every dose. And to me, that's insane because I only take like 2.5 to 3.5 grams of kratom every dose. So, I'm not really taking that much. And that's my daily thing. But when I'm taking high doses, I'm only taking them to explore. And yes, I'm having fun. What I've noticed with LSD is in the beginning I was taking it to explore. Now I'm still exploring with it, but I'm realizing LSD is a really fun psychedelic. It's like a wild child. There's a reason why Albert Hoffman called it, his problem child, because it's like a child. It's very playful. But it's more like a teenage child. I don't know, like you're trying to fucking woo 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 break free and fucking feel alive and feel free and feel the air around you and feel your connection with the world, yourself. Remember the dreams that you had and all that type of thing. While psilocybin mushrooms is trying to fucking punch you in the face and throw you across the galaxy. Um, it's just, yeah. You could read about things, you could listen to me talk about things, or you can experience it yourself. But just like with Terrence, I would definitely say that direct experience is very important in our society. That in order for our society to generally change and get it, more people need to have direct experience with the psychedelics, with these other things. Our society is trapped by alcohol. We don't get it. We don't see it. We don't see that because drugs are kind of alive. You're either trapped by an AI or you're trapped by an organic molecule, which is an organic thing, but regardless, you're trapped by something. We all are addicted to something, whether it's mentally addicted or physically addicted. But I don't know. I definitely realize I just look at this differently than a lot of people. I take it very seriously because I understand the dangers of these things. So, like, there's a reason why I've never done meth, I've never done cocaine, there's certain substances I've never done because I, I've never done heroin willingly. I used to experiment with Vicodin, so one time I got a fake Vicodin, and it was probably heroin or fentanyl. But there's certain things that I just don't do because I'm educated enough to understand those molecules are like no. But there are other molecules that can attach to that same receptor that are okay. That I guess are okay for me. That pass my tests. Like PCP does not pass my test. Um, After listening to what Steve-O went through and a bunch of other people go through in PCP, and PCP is angel dust. That for people who don't know, but that's some crazy. That can fucking push you over the edge. But I'm definitely down to try some ketamine, even though ketamine, PCP, DXM, they all work on the NMDA receptors. So they all work on the same receptor in the brain. It's just how they work on that receptor that matters to me. It's so that's I guess another reason why I'm like, well, I look at this like a scientist because I need to know the LD50 of the molecules I'm doing. I need to know what receptors they attach to. I need to know, and by looking at what receptors they attach to, I already know the effects. Uh, I can already have an idea in my head what type of effects the thing's going to have based on what receptors the molecule attaches to. So I already knew what boulding was going to feel like before I did it, because I knew it was an porphine alkaloid that worked on this receptor, that receptor, such and such. They work on dopamine receptors and a little bit of serotonin receptors and a little bit of whatever. So like some porphine alkaloids are more relaxing than others, but I just figured this one was going to be relaxing, and it was. Kind of was sedating. So I don't know. I guess I'm just going to end the video by saying I'm going to have another video like this probably in the future, but because I could talk about this for days. I've done so many different things, from adaptogens, which are like Janistema, ashwagandha. They don't really have a drug effect, but adaptogens are amazing because if you're someone who is tired all the time, I need some adaptogens in my life now, right? Because if you're someone who's tired all the time, adaptogens will give you energy, but not enough energy where you're like, yeah, but enough energy where you're not tired. But if you're someone who is too hyper all the time, that same adaptogen will calm you down a little bit. And adaptogens bring you to baseline. They balance you. If you're too hyper, they calm you down. If you're too calm, they bring you up. If you're sad, they might bring you up a little bit. If you're it's not that if you're overly happy, they're not going to make you sad. It's just, I don't know how to explain. If you're too it might calm you down a little bit and balance you out. It definitely helps relieve anxiety. But the adaptogens aren't, no matter how much of a high dose I've taken of those, they don't necessarily give a drug effect. I don't feel much. I do feel something, but it's not much. But they're really good